Hey there my fellow designers and creatives, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video in my mega product design course for beginners. In this video, we're going to learn about interaction design. We always cover UI design concepts, UX design concepts, but today we're going to go a little bit different and we're going to cover interaction design, which is a combination of UI and UX design combined together. Now, if you go online and read stuff, you're going to realize that it's quite vague. It's really hard to understand what is interaction design. There are a bunch of definitions online, concepts online, and it's really hard to understand when it comes to actually designing interfaces and screens, what is the interaction design aspect of it, right? So we're going to get into so much of details over here. And for the first time, I'm going to try a different format where I'm going to share my phone screen and I'm going to take you through certain apps and show you the interactions and try to understand what is interaction design really about. All right. Now, before I get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video if you haven't done already. Okay, so let's get started. Now, before I get into the apps, I'm going to quickly take you through a little bit of understanding of how I'm going to structure this. So yeah, now the first question I'm going to answer is what is interaction design, as you can see on the screen. Now, the first thing to understand is that all revolves around answering the question, what exactly happens when I tap or click on this? Now, obviously, we're going to be looking at mobile apps, so there's not going to be any clicking over there. It's going to be only tapping. So basically, to understand what is interaction design, if you can explain what exactly happens when I tap on something, it could be a button, it could be a card, it could be anything that you see on the screen. And the reason I've capitalized the word exactly is because people think they know what's happening, but actually they have to break it down into such granular steps. And I'm obviously going to show you what I'm talking about, right? So knowing what exactly happens when you tap on this is going to answer the question of what is interaction design, right? The other thing is that interaction design is not animation, right? There's a very big confusion and a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to interaction design and animation. Now, I'm going to show you an example, but to give you a little bit of context, right? Now, interaction design is the part where something happens on the interface as a result of your action, right? So when you tap on something, something happens. When you click on something, something happens, right? So that is interaction because you are interacting. When it comes to animation, animation has nothing to do with the user or the interaction. An animation can happen without the user doing anything, right? So I'm going to give you an example right now. Now here I am in an app called Cred, and as you can see, there are a lot of things happening. There's a shimmer on the button. You can see some elements flying around in the background, and also on the title where it says win rewards every day, you can see that there's some sort of a animation that's happening between two text elements, right? Now this is an animation and this has nothing to do with the user interacting. But when I tap on the button that says claim now, as I'm going to do now, when I tap on the button, you can see that there's a jump effect and then I go to another screen, right? So that is an interaction. Like what happens when I tap on the button that says claim now, right? When I tap on it, you can see that it sort of goes down. And if I lift my finger, it comes back up again, right? So I'm actually tapping on that button and that is me interacting with the button and then the button then slows down, right? So that is the difference between an interaction and an animation. Now, another question that I often get asked a lot is the difference between interactions and animations and stuff like that between Android and iOS, right? Now, I'm actually going to be making a separate video on this to get into the details of things. But in reality, today, I wouldn't say both apps. I would say both platforms would be the right word. Both platforms can and should have the same patterns because today's tech allows for it, right? Now, if you're designing a mobile app, it's very likely that the design and interaction and everything is going to be exactly same on Android and iOS. However, there might be some technical challenges that you might come across when designing for both platforms. But then, like I said, I'm going to cover that in a separate video, and I'm not going to do that in this video. But most likely, you can and you should have same patterns, right? It's not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes you can, but you need to aim to make sure that they have the same patterns. Okay. Now, let's get into the next thing where I'm going to talk about what are these patterns. Now, like I said before, if you go online and read a lot of articles and videos and you watch a lot of stuff, it's going to be very confusing, right? And what I'm going to be talking about isn't actually set in stone. There's no rule or there's no guide or I haven't picked this from anywhere, right? This is my understanding of interaction design. This is my definition. And I believe that this is very simple, very straightforward, and very easy to understand. Okay, now I want to categorize these into two patterns. One is navigation patterns and the other one is user flow patterns. I'm going to start off with navigation patterns. Now, navigation patterns might sound very simple, might sound very obvious, but I've seen tons and tons and tons of people make plenty of mistakes when it comes to navigation patterns, right? Now, there are two main concepts. One is modal sheets, and then you have pages. And I'm obviously going to share my phone screen. I'm going to explain everything in detail. Now, when we come to navigation pattern, right, what is the difference between a modal and a page? Now, if you don't know what the difference is, I'm going to show you that in a bit. But if you know what is the difference between a modal and a page, the best explanation that I can give you is you need to use modals when you don't have internal navigation, right? And I'm going to explain what this is, right? So keep this sort of as a benchmark. Use modals when you don't have internal navigation. And of course, there's a terms and conditions, obviously, because sometimes you can break away from that. And there's no right or wrong answer. And I'm going to explain why that is as well. Okay, so here I am in Airbnb. I'm going to show you a couple of things over here. Now, the first thing is we obviously have, this is the home screen. This is what you land on when you see. This is going to show you places that are close to where you live, right? Now, on the top right in the search area, you have a button that is the filter button, right? Now, obviously, you can't see my finger or you can't see anything else, but I'm just trying to sort of guide you visually, right? On the search bar, on the right side, you have a filter button, and I'm going to tap on that. And when I tap on that, you see that we have a sheet that comes from the bottom of the screen, which is typically called as a modal sheet. Now, in the simplest terms ever, anything that overlays your main content is your modal sheet. Anything that comes on top. It's also called as an overlay sometimes, but actually the technical term is modal sheet, and everybody is sort of moving towards that. Even though the human interface guidelines and the material design sometimes have these different definitions, and it sometimes get very confusing, but at a parent level, these are called as modal sheets. Now, this is a full screen modal sheet. You can also have half screen or small sheets, which are also called as bottom sheets as well, right? Now, the reason filters, as you can see over here, is in a modal sheet is very much because of the fact that I am not going to navigate too much further away from here, right? Anything that I want to do, I'm going to do it on this screen. So whatever prices I want to change, if I want to do that, I can quickly go ahead and change the prices. I want to choose the number of bedrooms, let's say 3, and then I want to choose the type of property, and then let's say I want a Wi-Fi, kitchen, and all of these things, and then I'm going to click on show 47 screens. Now, as you can see, there is no internal navigation that I am doing as such, right? So I'm going to go ahead and then just click on show 47 homes, and then it's going to update everything, right? Now, that is one way of navigating. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on one of the properties, obviously the first one, and as you can see, it animates and then it sort of zooms out and also is a modal sheet, right? So if I click on this, tap on this actually, and if I just move this over, this is an iOS feature. You can see that I can actually go ahead and move this around. This is definitely possible only on iOS, Android. Maybe the latest Android phones can support, but some of the older Android phones do not really. But it doesn't really matter. The point is that this is also a modal sheet because this is on top, right? This is again a full screen modal sheet, right? Great. Now, we're going to go into this and see a couple of stuff, right? So I'm going to go scroll down, and then we have this button that says learn more, under the air cover section, right? Now, when I tap on learn more, that also brings up another modal sheet. The reason is because I'm not going to have too much internal navigation. I just quickly want to read what is it that I can learn more about air cover, how we see over here, right? So I'm going to see all of this, and then everything is fine. And then I can click on the X icon, or I can swipe down in order to close it, right? That's that. Okay, let's go further. Let's go a little bit further. And now I'm going to see show all 56 amenities. Now, when I tap on this, you can see that we get something that comes from the side, right? Now, this is called as a page, right? Now, anything that comes from the side or at the same level as the previous screen is called as a page, as in this case. And anything that comes from the bottom of the screen or on top of the previous screen is called as a modal. So make sure you understand that very well. Okay. Now, here, if you, as you can see, if I scroll, you can see that they both are at the same level. I'm just moving inside. The navigation is going inside. That's the easiest way I can explain it. Now, the thing here is that on the screen, there's nothing for me to do, right? There is no internal navigation, right? As you can see, it's just a bunch of, amenities over here, and I can't do anything, right? If I click on any of these elements, I'm actually tapping on them, but you can't see it. Also, I'm going to be using the word clicking so many times by mistake. So just assume that it's tapping, right? So as I'm tapping on a couple of these, nothing is happening, right? So why is this a page and not a modal sheet? Right? Now, this could easily have been a modal sheet, right? Now, I personally feel that this could have been a modal sheet, but maybe due to some tech constraints, or maybe because there are too many designers working on the team, somebody went ahead and designed this to be a page that comes from the side rather than a modal sheet. Now, typically, if you were designing this app, this also should have been a modal sheet. Right now, the thing is, there's nothing wrong or right over here. Right now, just because they added a page that came in from the side rather than a modal sheet, it's not going to make any difference for the user, right? It totally doesn't really matter as long as it feels natural, right? I'm going to scroll down a little bit more, okay? I'm going to click on show all 29 reviews. Now, when I tap on this, here you can see this also could have been a modal sheet because there's nothing much for me to really do over here, right? And I can just keep scrolling down, and then there's nothing for me to hear. It's just for me to read stuff. So I'm going to go back. Okay, now I'm going to come down here to availability, house rules, health and safety, right? This section is going to be very interesting. Check this out. When I tap on availability, right, I can actually get a modal sheet that comes in from the bottom where I'm quickly going to go ahead and focus on one action at a time, which is to select the duration of my stay. That's the only thing that I want to do over here, nothing else, which is why it makes sense to show a modal sheet. Now, when I tap on house rules, the problem here is that it comes in from the side. Now, this is a very weird interaction, and I personally feel that this is wrong, right? So Airbnb ideally should have had this also in a modal sheet, because all I'm doing is just checking in details over here, right? I'm just checking in details. I'm not doing anything. It's just for me to consume content. This is ideally very similar to what we saw before, which was reading more about air cover, right? So when I tap on that, you can see that I get the sheet from the bottom of the screen, and that is very much similar to the rules that we see over here, which is this. Okay, now if I tap on health and safety, also it takes me to another page, which again I believe should not have been. And then when we tap on cancellation policy, same thing happens over here, right? So why do we have these three different things? Now the thing is, it's okay even if you do have it, because it really doesn't matter, as long as it feels very natural to the user, right? So make sure that you prototype this and then you see that this feels very natural and expected. Okay. Now, even when I tap here on the bottom, as you can see, it says 2,100 per night, and then there's some sort of duration. When I tap on that, that again brings up a modal sheet, because my action is quickly to just actually look at the calendar and then change the dates according to how long I want to stay. Now, when I tap on reserve, right, I go into a page. I'm going to go to the next step because I'm going down in the navigation. This is my flow, right? Because the first step over here was for me to look at the property, and then I'm going to tap on reserve, and then I'm going deeper and deeper into the navigation. And now I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I'm going to choose request to book. Obviously, I don't want to do that. So that's how it's going to work. Now, let's look at another app, which is the App Store, which is obviously the App Store. I know, obviously, you can see this only on iPhones because it's the App Store. Now, the thing is, I'm on this home screen, and as you can see that we have a bunch of these cards, and all of them pretty much look the same, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on any one of these, right? So I'm going to tap on the middle one over here. And when I tap on this, as you can see, it's a modal sheet because you have an X mark on the top, right? So it's on the right side, which really doesn't matter if it's on the right or the left, as long as users are comfortable using it, right? Now, this is a modal sheet, as you can see, because it is on top of the previous screen. Now, the interesting thing over here is when I tap on any one of the options, right? Let's say I tap on Pokemon Go, right? It takes me to another screen, which is not a modal sheet per se, but it's actually another screen that is coming in from the side, which is now a page, right? So the thing is, I am doing an internal navigation inside the modal sheet, which is very interesting, right? And this is a very common pattern that you can adopt when you're designing screens, right? So I'm obviously inside the modal sheet, as you can see. It is sort of considered that I am inside the modal sheet, and then I can tap on it to come back over here, right? Now, there's another app that also uses the same pattern, but in a different way. Okay, so here I am on Swiggy, okay? Now, Swiggy also has the same pattern that the App Store has, right? So you've got, this is the home screen, and you've got a bunch of cards that look very similar, right? Now, I'm obviously not here to comment on any of those, but when I tap on this item, right? What happens, it takes me a level inside, which comes in as a page, right? Now, the thing here is that over here as well, I have some information over here, and I'm just consuming. It sort of looks like an advertisement, right? But there's nothing actually for me to do over here rather than, tap on a CTA. So the thing is, this also could have technically been a modal sheet, right? And it always depends on how your code base is structured, how the navigation system is already structured in your code base, right? So the thing is, this could easily have been a modal sheet, but they chose to go with the side navigation. That's not wrong or anything, right? But that sometimes becomes a little bit unexpected, right? Now, the thing is, the App Store had a different pattern and here Swiggy has a different pattern, right? But the thing is, as long as Swiggy maintains this sort of a pattern all across their app, they're good to go. And that is the objective, right? If you're using modals everywhere, make sure you use modals a lot, right? If you're using a combination of both, make sure you're using them at the right time, right? And there's no right or wrong answer over here. It's all about knowing what are the patterns that exist, and I'm obviously showing you what each of the patterns are, and then adopting the ones that make very much sense for your example. Okay, so let's look at another example, which is Twitter. Now, on the top left, I have the profile icon. Now, when I tap on the profile icon, you can see that I get a side sheet that comes from the side of the screen, right? Now, is this a modal? Is this a page? It actually sometimes is called a sidebar or a navigation drawer, right? Now, the thing is, it's not really a modal. It's not really a page because, as you can see, it's not on top of it, although it does look like it, but also it's not deeper into the navigation because it is just pushing elements to the side, right? So technically, it doesn't matter what you call this. You can sometimes just call this as a sidebar or a side sheet or a navigation drawer or whatever it is, right? Doesn't really matter. But the thing here is that as I go into this, let's say I tap on topics. Okay, and now I'm going to get another screen over here, right? Now here, as you can see, none of these are actually modal sheets, okay? And if I go to choose more topics, I'm going to go deeper into the navigation. I'm going to choose, let's say, outdoors, and then I'm going to go deeper into the navigation again, right? So it's all going inside one by one. Now, the interesting thing here is when I tap on the second tab, as you see on the bottom of the screen, when I tap on the second one, okay, I come back to the original point of that tab. Now, this is an interaction that I don't know how many of you actually figured out. Even if you go to Instagram, even if you go to Facebook, probably, for example, you can always see that the bottom navigation always is visible and present, right? So let's try that again. Let me try to go to, let's say, list this time, all right? And I'm going to choose on designers, that's over here. And then I'm just going to tap on just some random tweet, all of this, right? Now, the thing is, if I tap on the second tab, which is basically the explore tab, it takes me all the way to the beginning. So that's very important for you. Now, if you have a navigation like this in your app, you need to make sure that this functionality is present. Okay. Now, the other thing here is if I, on the right side, as you can see, you have a floating action button, which basically enables you to create a new tweet. When I tap on that, you can see that I get a sheet from the bottom of the screen. Right? I get a sheet from the bottom, which technically is a modal that I can tap on cancel to sort of dismiss. It's coming from the bottom and overlaying it. And obviously there's no tab bar, right? In modals, there isn't any tab bar that's visible, right? So if you go back to the App Store example, the same thing applies here. If I go to games, for example, and let's say I tap on one of it, or maybe that's not the right one. Let's just choose one over here. You can see that the bottom navigation is always persistent, right? And if I go, let's say I tap on reviews, you can see that's over here. I tap on more, all of this, right? So the navigation at the bottom is always visible. And the moment, let's say, for example, if I come back to the home screen and I tap on this, right, you can see that in modals, the bottom navigation goes away, right? This is very, very, very important to understand. All right, cool. Okay, now we're going to look at medium as well, right? Now I'm going to show the same pattern that I showed you before, which is if I tap on any one of the case studies, you can see that the bottom navigation always persists. And maybe I can go to this person's profile. I can tap on it again. And as you can see, I'm going in and in and in again, very deeper into the navigation. And I can swipe to come back, but the bottom bar still persists. But the moment I tap on the home screen icon, I'm going to tap that now. It just cancels everything and brings me back to the original starting point, which is very important. Now, on the top right, you can also see the bell icon, which is basically my notification. Right now, when I look at notifications, right, I'm just trying to glance and just look at notifications. I don't want to do anything else apart from that. And when I tap on that, that could have also come as a modal, but here they chose to bring it as a page that comes in from the side, right? And when I tap on it, I can see I can go deeper and deeper into the navigation, right? So my guess is because there is so much more navigation that can happen, they decided to bring in as a side page rather than a modal sheet, right? Now, if I tap on the plus icon, you can see that I get this keyboard and, everything comes up as a modal on the top. I can obviously tap on close to, bring it down. So tapping on this brings the modal because now I'm in this dedicated space where I just have to go ahead and perform a dedicated action, which is obviously typing this out, right? So that's that. Now I'm coming back to this app Cred, and sometimes Cred actually breaks a lot of these patterns, and I totally believe that these are wrong and these haven't been taken care of or thought through, but it's very confusing. I'm going to show you why. Now, as you can see on the bottom, you have 6 tabs. Now, I'm not going to get into if 6 tabs are good or bad. That's not the point over here. But the thing is, when I tap on the last tab, right, which says more. When I tap on that, you can see that you get a bottom sheet. Now, which is a very different and a very weird interaction, right? Now, the thing is that even though this is weird and it's not common to the ones we saw before, these still make sense because it feels natural. Right? And because this is more like a more option, right? Now, this could easily have been a tab, right? They could have retained the bottom tab bar that you see at the bottom of the screen, but they decided to go ahead and bring up a bigger sheet, right? And let's say I tap on Cred Cache, right? And now that closes the modal sheet, right? Let's try that again. I'm going to click on more, and then I can click on Cred Cache. That's going to close that and then open up this new area where now I can get into Cred Cache. I'm going to go ahead and just say, take a look. And then now here is the weird part, right? Even though I expected to go deeper into the navigation, it opened up a modal sheet, which is very weird, right? And the thing here is that you have an left arrow icon on the top left, right? When I tap on that, it sort of is so weird that instead of moving from right to left, it sort of moves from top to bottom, which is a very weird interaction. And I totally believe that this is wrong, right? Now, my guess is that they did this because of some tech constraints or some tech problems, or maybe they just overlooked it, right? But this is ideally wrong. So when I tap on take a look, I need to have this screen, which sort of should come in from the right side. And this is basically where I can interact. And then when I choose my EMI plan over here, right, it does some fancy animation. And now it suddenly fades over here, right? I don't even know what happened. So when I go back, it's so weird that it closes the entire thing, right? So first of all, there's a lot of mistakes over here, and I don't think this was properly taken care of. So if we try that again, right, I'm going to tap on take a look. I get a sheet from the bottom, which ideally should have been from the right side. And then I choose my EMI plan, and then they do this fancy animation. And then it suddenly changes into this, which is basically where I can choose my EMI plan, right? Now, this is such a weird interaction because it allowed me to come back to this screen, but now to go back to the next screen, I have to tap on this button, which is a little bit of a weird interaction, right? Sounds cool and fancy, but sometimes this is very unintuitive for the user. All right. Anyway, so that's about Cred. Okay, now I'm going to show you the last tab, which is Spotify, and something very interesting over here. Now, I'm going to tap on one of the playlists that I have over here. And as you can see, there's a button that says add songs. Now, when I tap on this, right, it opens up a modal sheet. Now, the reason this is a modal sheet is because of the fact that here I'm doing a dedicated action of adding a particular song, right? Now, in this, there is some sort of an internal pagination or an internal navigation. I wouldn't actually call it navigation. I can just scroll internally and I can choose some of the songs that I want to add, or I can choose to search, and that happens right inside the modal sheet. And at any point in time, I can just go ahead and swipe down to cancel. Right? So that's an interesting thing to know about modals. Anytime I want in a modal sheet, I should be able to, let's say I search for a song, let's say I'm just going to search for EDM, and then I can just at any point in time, whether I'm typing, whether I'm in search, I can just always swipe and cancel it, right? That's the biggest advantage of a modal sheet. If people are not interested in performing the action, they can quickly go ahead and get rid of it. Okay, now one other thing that I want to talk about is on the top right, you have the settings icon, which sort of is the profile section, or basically all the settings are together, right? Now the thing here is that when I tap on that, since we have a lot of options, and here the navigation is too deep, I can go into so many levels, right? The thing is that the bottom tab bar is always present here again, because I can go quite deep into stuff. So maybe I go into languages, and then I choose app language, and then maybe I choose music languages, and then obviously I'm 4 levels deeper, right? But if I want to come back, it's just scrolling again and again becomes such a pain, right? So when I go ahead and tap on home, so let's try that again. I'm going to go into languages and choose music languages. When I tap on home, it brings me all the way to the beginning, which is very, very, very important. Okay, so that covers everything you need to know about navigation patterns and how screens should transition and enter in when you tap on something on the screen. All right, so now that we've covered navigation patterns, we can now get into user flow patterns. I'm going to show you something really, really fun and interesting. Okay, so I've taken screenshots from the Swiggy app and we're just designing the experience of searching for a particular item. Now, in this case, I'm searching for a food item. You could be searching for anything, right? Now, as a designer, you might think that, you know, there are 3 screens. So they have a screen over here, which is the home screen, which is the starting touch point. I'm going to tap on the search bar, and then I'm going to get this next screen where there's a search bar that's active and there's a keyboard. And then I'm going to type the dish that I want, and I'm going to get all the results. And then I'm just going to tap on one of them, and then there's probably going to be a fourth screen which has the list of search results, right? Now assuming this is the endpoint, right? Now you might think that when you are a designer, you're just going to be looking at designing 3 screens over here, right? So screen 1, screen 2, screen 3. But the thing is that there aren't 3 screens. And what if I told you that there were 7 screens and 4 more screens were hidden, right? This is where interaction design really comes into picture. So let me explain. So here is the first screen that we have. Now, when I tap on this, what's going to happen is not this screen, but we're going to get an intermediary screen which has a design that looks like this. The keyboard isn't visible yet, the search bar isn't active, and we have something called as a skeleton loading over here, right? Now, and then after a few seconds, it's going to change to this screen where it shows recent searches and trending searches and all of those things, and the keyboard is active. Now, so this is the third screen. And then when I go forward again and type in 2 letters, it doesn't matter whether you type in 1 letter or 2 letter or 3 letters or whatever, you can see that I typed in letters, but you can see that we don't have the search results. We again have skeleton loading over here. Okay. And after a while, then the results come. Now I typed in DO. I'm actually going for the word dosa, right? So I have donuts, I have dosa, I have hot dog, I have masala dosa and a lot of things, right? So I'm going to type in SA, which finishes the word dosa. And when I type in SA, you can see that we have the same results over here, but the opacity is so less. You can see that the opacity is low. And then after a few seconds, you can see that everything is 100% opacity, right? So what's happening over here, right? So if you look at this, from 3 screens, we went to 7 screens, and this is the core aspect of what interaction design is all about. Let me explain. Interaction design is all about interacting, which means if an interaction has to happen, it has to happen between 2 things, right? Now, I'm not going to get into super technical stuff, right? But the thing is that anytime the user wants to do something, the app has to go and get the information from somewhere. Now, there are 2 places where information can be stored. Obviously, it is stored within the app, and maybe I'm going to write this as well. And the term is called fetching data. Fetching data is faster, and on the cloud is fetching data is slower. Now, the reason fetching data from the cloud, or often sometimes we say server, is slow, or the thing is, this can even be with a third party, right? It may not be with their own internal server, it can be with a third party, right? So the thing here is that the reason fetching data might be slower may be because of your internet connection, right? Because your internet connection determines how fast the app can go and fetch data from the server. If it's already in the app, it's already on your phone, right? Or maybe I want to say inside the phone, right? I think that's better instead of saying inside the app. It's inside the phone, or sometimes it can be stored inside the app as well, right? Maybe I'm just going to say phone /app, right? Fetching data is really fast because you don't need internet connection, right? You just always have to have access to your phone, and obviously the app is on the phone, right? Which is why fetching data is a much faster thing. Now, who decides all of this? This is into engineering, right? Don't have a say in this. Designers don't even have the knowledge or experience to tell what is the right approach, right? This is a very core engineering aspect. So if we try to understand what's happening here, let's see if we can break this down a little bit further. Now, I've gone ahead and created a flowchart. I'm going to explain things very slowly. Now, when I tap on the search bar, 2 things happen. One is the app immediately sends a request to wherever the information is stored, and it tries to get some information. Now, what is the information that it is trying to get? It's trying to get recent searches and trending searches. That is the information that the app is trying to pull when I tap on this. Now, certain apps have this information like recent searches internally stored already, and sometimes it's not. So what's happening here is that by the time we are going to get the information from the cloud, we need to show the user something and not make them feel that it's blank, right? So let me give you an example. If I were to take these 2 screens and I come down over here, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just create a rectangle like this and then keep it white, right? The moment you see a screen like this, just look at the screen. There's no keyboard. It's not active. You don't see anything. It feels like such of a broken experience, right? And this is where interaction design gets connected with UI design and UX design, right? Because this looks very plain and boring from a UI aspect. And from an interaction standpoint, what am I supposed to do over here, right? I tapped in the search bar, but I'm not getting a keyboard, which is why you need to introduce something as a loading skeleton state, which lets the user know that some information is being collected. So please hold on, right? Now, the other thing that I can explain over here is something going to be very interesting. Now, sometimes, or most likely, recent searches are always stored in the app or the phone. That is very likely. Now, in this case, I don't know what's happening with Swiggy. Maybe or maybe not, it's stored on the phone, right? Now, if the information is actually stored on the phone, what they could have actually done, another design iteration, is if I go ahead and quickly grab this screen, and I'm just going to go ahead and crop this to explain something. I'm going to put that, let me go ahead and frame this. I'm going to put this on top, and then I'm going to come over here like this, or maybe something like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and this up, and then fill this color with white. And just assume there's a home indicator over here, right? So the other approach that they could have taken is they could have shown the recent searches first itself, or maybe I think this would be the wrong screen. I'm just going to remove this one and bring this over here, right? So when the app is fetching server from the cloud, they could have actually designed a screen like this where the recent searches is already visible because the app is able to pull in that information because it is already stored in the app. Okay. And then it can then wait for the information to come from the cloud. And then they could have probably shown this screen. Right? So typically they had two options. They could have either done it like this, or they could have done it like this. Now, I don't know why they decided to hide recent searches as well. One of the reasons maybe is that the information is on the cloud, right? So this could also have been another thing. And this is sometimes becomes a design choice, right? Do you want to show everything once, or do you want to progressively disclose them? I'm going to show you another example in Airbnb where they progressively disclose this information. It's very interesting. Okay, cool. So the same thing happens here. Every time something happens, the information, the app has to go to the cloud and fetch that information from there, right? Now, here again, what would you show? Would you show a blank screen? Obviously not. You show a skeleton and you sort of show the user that, look, we're loading it and we're trying to get the information. Please wait. Now, in this case, when I typed in the last two letters S and A, they could have used a skeleton as you see over here, right? But what they did was they didn't want to remove the entire list item itself, but they just wanted to reduce the opacity to maintain that state, right? Now, they could have very easily gone ahead and taken the skeleton and added here as well. That could have worked, right? But at least from a design standpoint, of a user experience standpoint, this would make a lot of sense by reducing the opacity, right? Because it doesn't feel like it's a destructive experience, right? And then you type in, and then the information comes from the cloud, and then the screen changes from this to this. Right? So this is actually true interaction design, and you as a designer needs to know what's happening, where it's happening, and how it's happening. Now, the thing is, it's very impossible for the designer to know everything right in the beginning. A lot of these times, these edge cases like designing these loading states usually come during the end of the stage when you sort of involve developers and engineers into the design process, or also sometimes it happens when you're handing off the file and then engineers have a few questions, right? They're going to say, look, we're going to take some time to fetch the data. So what do you want to show? That you want to show some sort of a loading state or something else, right? Now, every app does these loading states in a very different way, and I'm going to show you a few examples. But first, I'm going to show you how this looks on Swiggy itself so that you can actually experience and see how this feels. All right, here we go. So I'm going to tap on the search bar now. And as you can see that loading state. You could have easily seen that loading state for a very brief second. I'm going to try that again. I'm going to tap on this. You can see that loading state, and then the keyboard comes after everything loads in. I'm going to type in DO very fast. You can see there's a loading state again, and then the information is fetched. I'm going to type in SA now, and then you can also see that the opacity reduces because the app is trying to get information from the cloud and then present that over here, right? So this is how it happens in Swiggy. Okay, now I'm back here in Airbnb. I'm going to show you something very interesting. Now pay attention, right? Now when I tap on this particular card, right, which is obviously the first property, right, we can see that the app is going to go to the server and get some information, right? Because there's a lot of information that has to be fetched from the server, right? So as you can see, immediately you can see there's a loading state, all right? And then you can also see that there is this banner, right, which says this is a rare find. Heli's place on Airbnb is usually fully booked, right? Now that section took some more time to fetch, right? Because all of this is depend on how the entire code base and architecture and all of that is structured. Obviously, I don't understand all of this, right? And even as a designer, you may not understand this, right? But engineers are going to convey these things to you, and then you need to take a call. How do you want to present this information, right? Now in Swiggy, they showed the recent searches along with the trending searches, right? As I had mentioned before, but they could have shown the recent searches first and then progressively disclosed the trending searches section after that. And Airbnb has exactly done that. So if I go back and I tap on this again, you can see that the entire section sort of moves down, right? Because maybe fetching this entire section right from the point where it says entire cabin hosted by heli, right from there, maybe it's easier to get that information and it's faster. And it takes a little bit more time to get the banner that says this is a rare find. Right? So maybe the designers at Airbnb decided, let's show that and then let's progressively disclose the banner. Let's try with another item, right? So let's go here and then the same thing happens here as well. Okay, maybe we can look at some more examples. Let's search for the reviews, right? So if I tap on reviews and I tap on search reviews, and maybe I'm just going to say good or something like that. Right? And say search, you can see that there was a slight loading animation and it took time to fetch that information, right? So how do you design that is the point. Now, the other thing here to note is that they are actually using this loading animation, right? If let's say I'm going to type on, I'm just going to search for cat. Maybe if I'm going to find something, right? There was a slight loading animation, but then there were no results. Anyway, another interesting thing is if I choose a different tab, right? So right now I'm in beachfront, but what if I choose castles, right? You can see that there's a loading animation over here. There's a skeleton loading animation because the app has to go to the server and fetch that data. Now, how you design that skeleton is totally up to you, right? That's your design choice, right? You can have it animated, you can progressively disclose, you can do whatever you want with it. Now, I'm also going to search on Airbnb and see what happens when we search for things, right? So I'm going to tap on the search bar. And then tap on search destinations, right? You can already see that the recent searches are already there over here. We didn't have that loading state as we saw in Swiggy. And maybe that's because that information is already stored in the app inside the phone, right? Which is why we are able to fetch that data faster. Now I'm going to type in something. Let's say I'm going to type in Spain, right? Now the thing here is as I'm typing, the information is coming really fast and there's no loading state here as such, right? Now, this again, maybe because of the fact that the Airbnb's architecture or speed or whatever the tech that's behind it is pretty fast enough to gather information. Now, here I'm in Instagram and I'm going to show you what happens when I try to do the same thing that I did in Swiggy. So I'm going to type in the word design, but I'm going to type in 3 letters. I'm going to say DES. All right. And now we see a bunch of results. Maybe we were able to catch this information faster, right? Or maybe we're going to type in the word product, right? So I'm just going to say PRO. Or I'm going to say PRO, right? The app was pretty fast enough to bring in that data. Now, I'm going to say product, which is DUCT, and now see what's going to happen. When I start typing, you can see that in Swiggy, they reduce the opacity of the search items, but here, the opacity is not going to change. They're going to bring in a skeleton itself. So I'm going to type in DUCT. As you can see, they brought in a skeleton loading over here, which is now another interaction that you can introduce, right? So this is a different pattern. Okay, now here I'm in medium and I'm going to type the word design and then we're going to see what the loading state here looks like, right? I'm going to type in DES and as you can see there's a loader, right? Which you saw in the center of the screen. Now, that's not a skeleton, that's a loader. I'm going to type in IGN and it's just going to remove all the list items. You can see the loader again. I'm going to remove them. You can see there's a loader. I'm going to type again. As you can see, there's a loader, right? So this is another interaction that you can have. Okay, now here I am in Netflix. Now this is a combination of a couple of things. It's a combination of a loader and a skeleton. So I'm going to type in the word race and then let's see what happens, right? Whatever it is, right? So you can see, maybe I'm going to try that again. Maybe I'm going to use a different word. I'm going to type in, let's say the word doctor, for example, right? So I'm going to type in DOCTOR, right? You can see that even though there was a loader, there was also a skeleton and things loaded at, like it animated in, right? So maybe if I just remove the letters, you can see that maybe I need to try a different word because it's already cached. So let's say I'm going to say comedy. Right? I'm going to type in something and you can see that the elements slowly start fading in, right? It doesn't suddenly hit your face. They slowly sort of start loading in. Now that's another animation. Okay, here I am in booking.com. Now I'm going to type in the word Spain and just pay attention to the search bar, okay? I'm going to type in PAIN and as you can see that small yellow color line that comes in and goes, okay? I'm just going to type in some random things so you can see that. Now, as you can see now, you could see that those lines that kept coming and going. I'm just typing some gibberish over here. Maybe try something else, right? You can see that That yellow color line that you see is also another way of telling the user that, hey, look, we're trying to get information. Anyway, so the whole point here is to understand how information is flowing and how it is coming. And once the information comes, how do you want to go ahead and present that information, right? Because when you're fetching data from the cloud, information can come in multiple chunks, information can come all together, right? So what do you show when? When the app is going to fetch the information, what do you show here? Right? So all of these things are things you need to actually consider as a product designer, and you have to sit down and work with engineers in order to design the right interaction the right way. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. So till then, take care and bye-bye.